There comes a time in your life when you realize you've been moving forward, but something inside of you is still holding on. Hi ladies, welcome back to the Whole Ladies series. In the last episode, I shared how I began to recognize that some of the things I was dealing with were not just random. They were connected to experiences I had not fully processed, connected to emotions I had carried for a long time without understanding them. And that awareness changed something, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you become aware of what is going on with you, you can no longer pretend everything is fine. And for me, that awareness led to a question. What do I do with all of this? Because it's one thing to recognize that something is there. It's another to decide what to do about it. And for a while, I sat with that question. I reflected. I thought about my life, my reactions, my emotions, my patterns. And one thing I began to, realize that if I truly wanted a different kind of life, I had to make a different kind of decision. One of the things I did was to open up. I allowed myself for the first time to speak honestly about the things that I had carried silently for years. Not in a dramatic way, but in a real way, in an honest manner, and something about putting words to what I had been feeling. It created space to breathe, space to think, space to begin again. But there was another step. This one was harder. That was forgiveness. For a long time, I had carried emotions I didn't always express. And if I'm being honest, part of me felt justified in holding on to them. Because when something affects you deeply, letting go doesn't feel natural. But I began to understand something slowly. Holding on was not protecting me. It was weighing me down. And I came to a point where I had to ask myself, do I want to keep carrying this, or do I want to be free from it? That question, it was another question I had to answer for myself. And until one day, I made that decision, a very quiet decision. And that decision was to forgive. I chose to forgive. Not because everything suddenly made sense, but because I didn't want to carry the weight anymore. And I remember that moment clearly. It wasn't a loud one. It wasn't even a perfect timing, but something really shifted inside of me. I felt lighter for the first time. I felt like I could finally breathe in a way I hadn't noticed I was missing. And that was the beginning of my healing journey. Because healing, is not a single moment. It's a process. It's a journey. It's a series of choices. There were still moments where memories came back, moments where emotions resurfaced, moments where I had to remind myself of the decision I had made. But something was different. I was no longer unaware. I was no longer living in denial. I was no longer avoiding the conversation. I was now intentional. And as life continued, I began to see something else. Some of the things I had carried were showing up in how I responded to people, even in my marriage, how I reacted to situations, in how I interpreted certain moments. And that realization helped me understand something important. Healing is not just about your past. It's about how your past is affecting your present. So I became more intentional about my growth, intentional about my responses, intentional about becoming a better person. Not perfectly, but gradually. And over time, I began to change. My perspective changed. My reactions became calmer. My understanding became deeper. And I began to experience something I hadn't fully known before now. which is called peace. I experienced so much peace, not the kind that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from within. And that journey is what led me here, to this space, to these conversations, because I know I'm not the only one. There are many women who are moving forward in life, but still carrying things inside, things they haven't fully processed, things they don't always talk about. And my hope is that through this series, you will begin to recognize your own journey. Not with pressure, no, not with judgment, but with honesty. Because healing is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming a healthier version of yourself. And that was the beginning of my healing journey. Not perfect, not instant, but real. And if there's one thing I have learned is this: you don't have to have everything figured out to begin this journey. You just have to be willing to start. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep becoming the whole lady you were always meant to be. If you've been following my story and you're wondering, there's more to this, then you are right. There's so much more to my story, more than I can say in a video, more than I can explain in a few minutes. The full journey, the hidden chapters, the lessons I had to learn the hard way, all are coming together in something very special. I have put it all together in my upcoming book, The Whole Lady, where I shared my full journey in a deeper and more personal way, a more honest look into my journey of brokenness, healing, and becoming. If my story has spoken to you in any way, then trust me, the book will take you even deeper. And it's coming soon on Amazon and other major book platforms. Stay with me on this journey.